So when I went to
Okay, good evening, everybody.
we drove by the town. We went by the town.
Okay. My name is John Dean. I'm from the Connecticut DOT. I am the project manager for State Project 151 through 40. That's the proposed removal of the exit 21 off-ramp from I-4 eastbound. Really appreciate everybody coming out this evening to join us. This is our second public info that we're holding on this project. Before we get started, we do have Spanish interpretation available to anybody who needs it. I'll go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good evening. Please raise your hand if you need interpretation tonight, Spanish interpretation. Buenas noches. Por favor, levante la mano si necesita interpretación al español.
Okay, so tonight's agenda, we'll have an introductions for the team. We'll talk about the new mix, which is the program that is looking at the future replacement of the I-4 Route 8 interchange, otherwise known as Mixmaster, and the breakout projects that are associated with that study. So this proposed closure of the exit 21 off-ramp is a breakout project from that study. We'll talk about what is the need as far as the exit removal. Introduction of the project. So where is it located? We'll walk through the design and the different aspects on both the highway main line, the ramps, and the local road improvements at Coast. We'll get into the construction cost and what to expect during the right-of-way phase. We'll talk about our public outreach efforts to date and the next steps for the project. And then we'll have a period for question and answer. So we will reiterate this at the end, but when we do have questions, we have a microphone that we'll ask folks to come up to, just to make sure that we catch your question on the camera. But if you don't want to come up and speak, you can ask the question and we can just read back the microphone. So real quickly, the project team from Connecticut DOT, Mike Calabrese is the Division Chief of Highway Design. Neil Patel is the Principal Engineer of the Major Highways Unit. Again, my name is John Dean, the Project Manager. Joe Belrose is the Project Engineer. We have Zach Carino, who is the Right-of-Way Coordinator with us this evening. H&TV Corporation is the consulting firm that's leading the design.
We're having a hard time hearing you.
Oh, sorry. Okay. HNTB is the consulting firm that's leading the study. So we have Rudy Franciamore, who's the project manager, David Schweitzer, who's the technical advisor, Samantha Sharp is the project engineer, Pat Etter is the co-project engineer, and Dave Giel is the traffic engineer. So with that, I will turn it over to David Schweitzer for the next part of the presentation.
Thank you, John. First thing is the project that is going on presently out there where we're rehabbing the interchange is there to add 25 years of service life to the interchange and all those bridges while we are going through the long-term plan for the future of the Mixmaster. We've been out to a lot of meetings, we've met with a lot of community groups, we've met with a lot of some of these people, a lot of familiar faces here in this room to me. But what we're going to look to do is we're going to look at options to either rehab or to replace the interchange, where we can modernize it, improve the safety and the function of both the interstate, the ramps, and the local roadway network, where we can reduce congestion on the highways. And we also want to make sure that we align with the community plans of the city of Waterbury and also your economic development plan. Now, these projects will occur over time. We've broken these projects into three categories. First of all, we're going to have what we call the long-term project, which is when we're at the core of the interchange. We're going to have what we call near-term projects, which is where we're going to be working out on the legs of the main lines, on the outer portions of I-84 or on Route 8. And then we're going to have what we're calling these early action projects, which is what this project is that we're going to be talking about tonight, as a sample of one of these. So getting into these early action projects, they're smaller, standalone type projects that are either improvements to the highway or to the local roadway network. They're intended to improve safety and traffic operations. These have been coordinated with the City of Waterbury, and there's a review process that's separate from our new mix Pell study. So this is the area that we're talking about, just to orient everybody. 84 is running left to right across the screen. We've picked out some landmarks to orient you where the features are. Route 8 is running top to bottom with the Naugatuck River paralleling it. These lines here in blue are the improvements to the local roadway network, and also on that stretch of 84 between exit 21 and 22 that my colleague Rudy will be going through later in the presentation. So to get into the project need of where this came about, this was actually identified when we were doing our initial analysis needs and deficiency study on the interchange. And this project materialized that would be a good project that was going to meet that criteria for an early action project. So just to understand here's we're focusing in closer here on I-84, and this is I-84 eastbound. Just to go through the existing conditions, we have I-84 eastbound with 2 through lanes coming in from the west side of the screen here. We have the ramp from Highland Avenue that will taper in, and we'll still have the 2 lanes on I-84 eastbound. Then we have the ramp from Route 8 southbound, which adds a lane to the left-hand side. And it's important to note that that ramp is signed that people are not supposed to cross traffic to get off at exit 21 or 22. But we know that signs aren't always obeyed and people will still make these movements. So that's something we plan for in our design. Then we have the on-ramp coming on from Route 8 northbound, which forms a short auxiliary lane or a 4th lane that then ends at exit 21. And that's a very short 350-foot stretch where cars that are looking to get to exit 21 have to diverge over while weaving with cars that want to merge into 84 that have come up from Route 8 northbound. That's a very short distance that can cause conflict. Then as we go further east, we have the ramp to exit 21, which is the end of that auxiliary lane or the 4th lane. And then we get up to exit 22, which is a diverge, it's a taper off. And then the 3 lanes of I-84 eastbound continue easterly. So as we break this down and look at each of these movements as they come on, you can see how Highland Avenue comes in and it will merge. And then what we're identifying are what we're calling these conflict points. These are points where there are decisions to be made, where the Highland Avenue traffic is merging in to the I-84 eastbound into those 2 lanes. Then we have the point where you have the divergence to exit 21, and then further the traffic at exit 22. Similarly, with Route 8 southbound, this comes in on the left side as a lane add, giving us the 3 lanes. We still have to analyze for these movements to exit 21 and 22. So those are 2 additional conflict points. Then as we look at the traffic that comes on from Route 8 northbound onto that short auxiliary lane, we again have that weave where you have the merge and diverge with the people wanting to get to exit 21, and then the Route 8 northbound traffic that wants to get up onto 84 eastbound, and then we get to exit 22 where again we have another diverge. Lay these all out on top of each other with all these movements, all these decisions that cars need to make, end up with a lot of these conflict points. So
in our analysis, when we were doing that initial phase of the analysis needs and deficiency study, we did collect traffic data from 2017. And then what we're able to do with this traffic data is we're able to model this with engineering software. This was a program called VISM that will run through. And it models, so as you're seeing these rectangles and larger rectangles are trucks and cars that are operating up here on 84. And this here is the entrance ramp from Route 8 northbound here coming up on the left. And you can start to see the conflict points that we were identifying where people are looking to make these decisions. Now, our long-term plan for the mixed master is to replace it in the year 2045. So to show you our analysis from 2045 would not have been a good thing to show you, because then we'd have the whole interchange replaced. So we did some smart analysis, and what we've determined from that traffic analysis is that in the year 2031 is where the congestion and the traffic operations on I-84 eastbound would really reach a failing point. So this is how the traffic would operate. Doesn't want to play for me. One more try. All right, we're going to bypass that. So then the traffic, similar to how it was in 2017, we were getting 14 more years, and it was really congesting Interstate 84 eastbound. And it was causing long backups and queues on the interstate itself. So just to recap the summary on the project need, we have a lot of substandard distances for the merges, weaves, and diverges. We have that short 350-foot auxiliary lane coming on from Route 8 northbound that drops off at exit 21. Another 740 feet further to the east, we have exit 22. A high crash location where we have recurring congestion, and we have efficient traffic operations. And then exit 21, which is highlighted there in red, that bridge is also in poor condition, which would need a major rehab on it. So that's the reason for the project. Now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Rudy Franciamore, who's going to walk you through what improvements we're going to make with this project to this area.
Thank you, David. Again, my name is Rudy Franciamore. I'm the project manager for State Project 151-340, and I'm going to be now getting into the proposed design for the project. The project goals are, number one, safety on I-84 in the vicinities of exits 19 to 22, as well as the traffic operations in that same area. And ancillary to that are the traffic operations to the local road network. And as another benefit to the project, we are anticipating air quality to improve in the area with the reduction of idling cars. David explained in great detail the location. We determined that for our analysis that by closing exit 21, we're going to be able to dramatically reduce the amount of congestion through this area. And that's also because we're going to be extending that auxiliary lane by 600 feet. Now, to put that into perspective, that's about 2 football fields worth of extended lane. We're also going to be reducing the amount of the merge and diverge that happen quickly through this area, causing those safety concerns. So this is a video. 2031, as David was explaining, 2031 is the year that if we did nothing in this area, the traffic operations would totally break down. It would be traffic backups would be all the way back to roughly exit 18 to the west. This is the build condition with the exit closed. You can see the free-flowing traffic. This is done through our modeling program. And this is the final part of the project at exit 22. Now, with the closure of exit 21, we recognize that all the traffic is going to be going off to exit 22. So we had to determine the project location or the project limits for this project along the local roadway network. We recognize that there were going to be improvements that were going to be needed along the local roadway network. So what we did was we figured out a local common area to determine the project limits, and we chose the train station on Meadow Street. So with exit 21 closed, and with everyone traveling to exit 22, we determined that folks can either get off exit 22, head north on South Main, up Grand, and to the train station, or conversely, south on South Main to West Liberty, up Bank, and to Meadow to get to the train station. The local project improvements that we've determined are needed for this project are going to be to do traffic signal upgrades along 8 of the intersections, formalize parking where needed, and a big part of this project is to include bike, ped, and transit amenities. This is a big initiative of the Department of Transportation in Connecticut, is to improve bike, ped, and transit safety. And lastly, we're going to be doing pavement restoration, sidewalk restoration, and pavement markings along the project routes that are shown here in yellow. The first area I'm going to focus on is the proposed design for the main line. This is 84 at exit 21. Currently, it is temporarily closed, but in the previous condition, when the ramp was when the ramp was open, as David was explaining, it's a very short distance to get from the Route 8 on-ramp from the south and quickly get off at exit 21. And then you're also contending with all the different conflict points that we were discussing. In the proposed condition, which is similar to now, that auxiliary lane that is coming up from Route 8 northbound is going to continue on and be a lane drop at exit 22. This is the existing condition at exit 22, where you have that people are merging into that third through lane on I-84 eastbound, and then exit 22 is a tapered style off-ramp. In the proposed condition, we're going to be continuing that auxiliary lane from Route 8 northbound to exit 22, but we're also anticipating additional traffic on exit 22. So we're going to be creating only through restriping. It's not going to be reconstructed, but we're going to restripe exit 22 to be a 2-lane off-ramp. And that third rightmost lane on 84 is going to become a decision lane to exit 22. So you can either continue on 84 eastbound or get off exit 22. It's called a decision lane. And this is, again, to anticipate the additional traffic that's going to be on exit 22. So that's all the improvements that we're proposing on the main line. With the additional traffic on exit 22, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to need to do some local roadway improvements. This is the first area that we looked at. It's exit 22 at Market Square and South Main Street. The current roadway is a 3-lane roadway at the junction, at the base of the ramp. It's a 12-foot left turn lane, a 12-foot through lane, and a 12-foot right turn lane. In the proposed condition, to handle the traffic, and we analyzed all the traffic volumes, it's still going to be a 3-lane section, but we repurposed the lanes. It's still going to be a left turn lane with a through lane, but the rightmost lane is also going to be a shared right and through lane as well. Now, it's important to note that we did look at eliminating the traffic signal at Market Square, but through the public outreach program that we did earlier on in the year, we discussed this with the stakeholders in the area, and it was determined that Jarjuro's does need Market Square as part of their circulation with their truck movements. So eliminating that awkward intersection with Market Square and the off-ramp was not going to be part of the project. So now I'm going to take you to West Liberty just to orient people. This is the corner of Bank and West Liberty right at the Home Depot. The current roadway has a 9-foot parking lane on the north side of West Liberty. It also has 2 through lanes, one in the eastbound direction and one in the westbound direction. And also important to note that the south portion of the roadway does not allow parking. It's a no parking zone. In the proposed condition, we took advantage of all that space that's on the south side that's currently not allowed for parking, and we've incorporated some bike and ped amenities. We're still going to keep that 9-foot parking lane on the north curb line. We're going to introduce 2 12-foot lanes, one in each direction, with a 3-foot buffer to a bidirectional bike lane, 4 feet in each direction. And the areas in orange are sidewalks that are going to be reconstructed along with the pavement restoration through the area. Continuing on to the second half of West Liberty Street within the project limits. This is more of a residential area. You have multifamily homes. It has parking on both sides of the street. So unfortunately, we could not continue there was not enough width of the roadway to be able to continue that bidirectional bike lane through West Liberty to try to make the bike facilities through the area more connected. The existing conditions does have parking on both sides with 2 travel lanes, 2 12-foot travel lanes. And in the proposed condition, we are proposing keeping the 2 9-foot parking lanes, but adding what's called a sharrow for the bicyclists through the area. We also were anticipating at the intersection of South Main and West Liberty, additional trucks coming through there, coming off exit 22 and heading south on South Main Street. We realigned, without roadway reconstruction, just through striping, we realigned the center yellow line to better align with East Liberty, and that gives us 2 benefits. Number one, it realigns West Liberty better with East Liberty because right now it's an offset intersection. And secondarily, by adding that small yellow painted island, we're providing a little additional room for the tractor trailer trucks to make that turn around that corner. We are not impacting any of the corners on this at this intersection. Next, we're going to look at the south portion of South Main Street. This area is really tight, and we're not proposing to move, because of right-of-way issues, we are not proposing to move any of the curb lines. Currently, there's undefined parking on both sides of the roadway with very narrow lanes. When you have cars parked on either side of the roadway, sometimes you'll see that cars have to cross the center yellow line to get through. And in worst case scenarios, sometimes cars are parked up on the sidewalk, making it a bit unsafe for pedestrians. So in the proposed condition from West Liberty and moving north, we're proposing to eliminate the parking on the east curb line, or north is pointing to the right side of the screen. So on the lower part of the screen, we're eliminating that parking, giving a little more room for the traveling public. We're going to be providing 2 11-foot lanes and formalizing the parking on the opposite curb line as you see here. And again, everything in orange is going to be reconstructed sidewalks with ADA compliant handicap ramps as well. This is the north portion of of South Main Street. Again, it has undefined parking along the housing complex in Jurajuras. That area is actually signed as no parking. In the proposed condition, we're going to be adding some on-street parking, and this area is receiving quite a bit of improvement. there's 2 bus stops on either side of South Main Street in this area near Market Square. We're providing a bus bump out on the west curb line, or the top portion of the screen, making it easier for people to take a bus. The bus is just going to pull right up to that curb, and it'll be easier boarding than having to come out from the sidewalk through parked cars. And then on the opposite side, there's another bus stop where we're proposing to add a bus shelter. The corner where St. Anne Church is, that is a very, very large and unsafe intersection. We propose to do a little bit of what is called a road diet, where we brought in the curb line at St. Anne's Church. So St. Anne's Church is going to have a little bit of a wider sidewalk. And by doing that, we're reducing the length of the crosswalk, as you see right there. And we did check to make sure that all the appropriate vehicles that use that route can still make that turn. And lastly, what we did at the intersection with Market Square is we added a right turn lane traveling northbound on South Main and heading on McMahon Street. This is the area of Bank Street and Meadow Street, and also the entrance to the Home Depot Plaza. Currently, it is where you see that purple arrow, we have an 11-foot right turn lane, an 11-foot through lane, and an 11-foot left turn lane with a 17-foot northbound through lane. In the proposed condition, we looked at the traffic volumes, and we realized that there's not that many cars taking that right turn from Bank Street onto Meadow Street. The volumes just were not there, or the numbers just were not showing that. So again, to improve pedestrian crossings, we introduced a road diet on that portion of Bank Street where we eliminated that right turn lane and made it a shared through right turn lane, as you see there up on the upper portion of the screen. We are providing still the left turn lane to the Home Depot Plaza, and the same through lane northbound. This is probably the biggest improvement to the local roadway area. If you're familiar with Meadow Street, this is a picture of Meadow Street looking southbound. As you can see right there where the purple arrow is, that's roughly where we took that picture. For those not familiar with the area, it's 2 through lanes northbound or coming at you at the screen, and then there's 4 southbound lanes that are bifurcated by the bridge pier holding up the stack. If you get into the 2 right lanes, you're heading towards Meadow Street. If you get into the 2 right lanes just to the left of the bridge pier, you're automatically being forced to take the 84 on-ramp to 84 eastbound. And again, we looked at the numbers, the volumes, and it just doesn't warrant having such a massive amount of lanes in this area. So what we were proposing is to provide a northbound through lane on Meadow Street, and again, north is facing to the right of the screen. We're going to provide a channelized right turn onto the I-84 on-ramp, I-84 eastbound on-ramp. We are providing a through lane in the northbound direction as well as left turn lanes. And this is the best part of this section of the project is we're going to be repurposing all that additional pavement into a protected bidirectional bike path. This is a close-up of the area. Up on the top of the screen, you can see the massive amount of space that the numbers just show is not needed. We have on the left, a right turn lane from Meadow to Bank, a shared through and a left turn lane, and a second shared through turn lane with the northbound lane heading towards Field Street. And in the proposed condition, we eliminate those two northbound lanes, and we put everything to the east of that bridge pier. We're providing a northbound through lane with a painted island, a left turn lane northbound, a through lane northbound, and a right turn lane northbound. And this is where the bidirectional bike path starts. It starts right at Bank Street and it continues north. And it's once you get to a certain point, it does become protected with the landscaped island. This is the second half of Meadow Street. This is really showing you what we have. We have those two northbound through lanes that head towards Bank Street. Then we have those two left turn lanes that take you to the 84 on-ramp. And again, if you get into those two right turn lanes, everybody that's familiar with the area knows that you cannot continue on northbound. You are stuck getting onto the highway. And then you have the two through lanes heading northbound, along with a very unprotected or unsafe bike lane on the lower portion of the screen. In the proposed condition, we're eliminating those two lanes, repurposing them into a protected bike path, bidirectional, that will connect to the existing bike paths that continue on to Freight Street. And again, you see two 7-foot lanes for the bikes. It's either going to be a landscaped median, or the area underneath the stack will be some sort of a stamped concrete to match other areas of the city. And then once you get beyond the stack, it'll continue to be a landscaped island. And the last portion of this area is Field Street. Right now there's two lanes heading towards Meadow Street. It's a left and a right turn lane, and then an exclusive left turn lane onto Meadow Street with this very large and awkward painted landscaped island. And then a through lane continuing on Field Street in the eastbound direction. We wanted to simplify this intersection, so we made the landscaped island smaller, and we also improved the sight distance on Field Street as it approaches the Exit 21 off-ramp. The Exit 21 off-ramp is a continuous off-ramp. It does not have a stop condition at Field Street, and this proposed design will improve the sight distance at that intersection. And the last roadway as part of this project is Freight Street. There's not much reconstruction going on Freight Street. This is more of a restriping effort. Currently, it's a one left foot lane heading westbound. There's a left turn lane on the other side of the roadway. It's a left turn lane, a through, and a right turn lane, and then an exclusive right turn lane, and then the existing bike lanes on Freight Street. And in the proposed condition, through our traffic analysis, we repurposed some of these lanes. We determined that there were more cars making left-hand turns, so we repurposed some of these lanes. It's now that same 11-foot westbound lane is going to remain, but we repurposed the other 3 lanes. It's going to be a 10-foot left turn lane, a 10-foot through and a left turn lane, and an exclusive right turn lane. I will now pass the presentation to Zach Garino, who's going to talk about the right-of-way process. I'll continue with one more slide. Sorry about that. The rights-of-way, which Zach is going to discuss the process of the rights-of-way. The project consists of 28 what we call temporary easements. They're construction easements. What those are easements that the contractor would need to build something that's near your property. Those construction easements end at the end of the construction, so that's why we call those temporary. There are 3 partial acquisitions. There's 6 traffic easements. The traffic easements are to incorporate the new traffic signal equipment in an area that we need additional space. We have 3 easements for intersection site distance and sight line. We're improving, again, trying to improve the local roadway network by improving sight lines and sight distances. And another easement for, that we need for the slope to support the highway in one particular area. And then one last easement for the installation and maintenance of the bus shelter on South Main Street. I will now pass the presentation on to Zach Garino, who will discuss the right-of-way process.
Thank you, Rudy. My name is Zachary Garino, and I'm a project coordinator with the department's Division of Rights of Way. Our office is responsible for acquiring the property rights needed for transportation projects. As mentioned in the presentation, this project will require the acquisition of property rights. I'd like to give a brief overview of our acquisition process. Before I begin, I'd like to mention that the specific impacts are still being finalized and may change as the design progresses, and that any required property rights will be acquired in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes, Sections 13A 73 and 13A 98E, as well as the Uniform Act. The right-of-way acquisition process begins once the design has progressed to a development milestone and all the impacts have been determined. At this point, each affected property owner will receive a formal letter of intent to acquire from our office, along with a property map which depicts the exact property rights to be acquired. So on the screen here is an example of a property map that an owner would receive. It's going to show the impacts to their property, as well as the existing conditions. Keep changing. Next, our office will determine the fair market value of those property rights that were depicted on the property map, and will be used to establish an offer of just compensation. That offer will be sent to the property owner in writing, and a right-of-way agent will be available to meet with the property owner and explain the project, go over the specific impacts to their property, and explain how their state arrived at its offer. The property owner will be given a reasonable amount of time, typically 30 days, to consider the state's offer and enter into negotiations. When an agreement is reached, the department will prepare all the necessary paperwork to record the deed and property map on the town land records. However, if agreement cannot be reached, in order to keep on schedule, the department may acquire the necessary property rights through its power of eminent domain. In that event, the state files a notice of condemnation in the Superior Court, along with a monetary deposit in the amount of the state's offer. The owner would have 6 months from that date to file an appeal if they felt that the state's offer was inadequate. Whether or not the owner chooses to appeal, the money deposited in the court is available to be withdrawn by the owner. It's important to note that the state only acquires property rights that are needed for this particular project. If there are any questions specific to the right-of-way acquisition process, I can answer them after the presentation. And with that, I'll hand it over to Rudy to finish up. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Next, I'm going to be talking about the construction cost of the project. This is still at the preliminary design phase of the project, but we are anticipating about a $20.8 million construction cost with a right-of-way cost of about $630,000 for a grand total of $21.4 million. 80% is going to be federally funded, and the other 20% is going to be state funded. The public outreach that we've done to date, we've created a fact sheet. If most of you probably have gotten them. We've distributed the fact sheet to businesses and residences along the project routes and the local areas as well. We held field meetings with major stakeholders such as Home Depot, Jarjura's, St. Anne's Church, and the Exxon gas station on Meadow Street, as well as having a concept public info meeting back in March of this year. The next steps for the project are going to be, right now we're hosting the public info meeting fall of 23. We're anticipating a final design to be completed fall of 24 with a construction start of spring of 2025. And we are anticipating approximately 2 to 2.5 construction seasons with the anticipated construction completion of summer of 27. I thank you very much, and now I turn it back to John Dean, the project manager from Conduct.
Just one thing to point out to those that are in attendance here. You'll notice that there was a lot of focus on the pedestrians, the bicyclists, and the transit. On the bicycles, the peds, and the transit. Well, there's both a national and a state movement on mobility equity at that level. And then also the state has employed what are called complete street directives that we've been working on. And in addition to this, those bicycle lanes, NVCOG has been working on the Naugatuck River Greenway project. So we're looking to tie into that. That is actually a multi-use type trail that is following the Naugatuck River and utilizing city streets. And that's part of the improvements with the bicycles that we were doing and the peds, is to be able to get them to this greenway to be able to utilize that feature. So with that, I'll turn it back over to John, or?
Okay, so now we'll open the floor up for questions. Again, we have a microphone here if you'd like to come up and speak into it. But if you don't feel comfortable doing so, you can just ask your question and we'll repeat it so it gets picked up by the mic. I do see that Senator Hartley is here. If you'd like to have the floor to make any comments or statements.
Thanks so much. And thanks for being here, and I've seen your calendar and time frame. It's a very important process that we're going through here, and my apologies for only being able to get here at the tail end of this description. So I'm sure the slide deck is probably available, which I'll take advantage of. I'm wondering if there's going to be a legislative piece to this, that we sit down with the delegation on this. Yeah, I think that would be a good thing, that we could kind of walk through it. We have the maps in hand, and I see a lot of friends and neighbors, and I think it's really important that everybody understands the full plan and its impact, so that we can have a very productive dialogue going forward. I'm understanding that we are at the point where we're still taking input, which will then hopefully reach consensus and ultimately be reflected. Okay, thank you very much, and I look forward to putting together a delegation meeting.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes, sir. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Sure. Yeah, no, that's a great question. Thank you. So just to explain the process, we did come out earlier this year. I think that was in March. We just had a very conceptual level design at that time. Really none of these decisions had been made regarding the types of improvements, such as the bike lanes, parking configuration, and the like. So that was the first step to kind of nail that down. We worked with the city to see what they'd like to see out on South Main Street, West Liberty, and Meadow. So really, where we're coming to you today, we're at about 30% design. So at this point, it's still very preliminary. We're going through the environmental documentation through the National Environmental Policy Act, otherwise referred to as NEPA. So once we have that documentation in hand, that's when we go into final design, acquiring right-of-way, which is expected to be minor on this project, coordinating with utility companies. So the design process does take some time, but some of that is driven by the process that Zach outlined with how long it takes to draw up property maps and negotiate with property owners, and then some of that coordination and the final details. So again, we're expecting that to take about a year and about 2 to 3 years in construction. Art, did you have something? $1 million, 21 million. Yeah, so just Art's question was about property impacts and the tax roll. So we're expecting, where we do have right-of-way acquisitions on this project, they're limited to just what's needed to install traffic signal equipment, things like that. We do have a small acquisition to incorporate the right turn lane onto McMahon Street. That's currently owned by the city of Waterbury, that property. Other than that, there's some temporary easements that'll be required during construction to facilitate construction of the sidewalk. So I'd have to just take a guess that the impact to the tax rolls is minor in this instance. Yes, sir. Okay, yeah, great question. So the question was, so again, we're talking about the cost of the project, about 21 million. Some of that work is going to be done on the interstate. Some of it's going to be done on South Main Street, which is a state route. But as was pointed out, yes, sorry, I'm getting to it. So West Liberty Street is a town road. Sure. So trying to think what the number was. Yeah, I'm not comfortable giving a number right now. It was somewhere in the, say, 5 to 10 million range to rehabilitate exit 21. So, yeah, I do just want to say, so it wasn't just about the rehab work that was needed on the exit 21 ramp, but also we talked about safety and congestion on I-84 as well, correct? Sure. Again, I don't have that number at hand, but I will say this stretch of I-84 has been on our high-frequency crash locations list for a number of years. So. Absolutely. So just to reiterate for everybody so everybody can hear, the comment was about the Mixmaster interchange and just how many times it's been rehabilitated over the years. And again, that's this new mix program that we're working on. So this was identified as a breakout from that study that is looking at the eventual future replacement of the interchange. So it takes some time. Yeah, appreciate it. Sure. Yeah, no, I just do want to say, so sure. No, I'd like to, if you'd like to talk afterwards, we'd love to continue the conversation. Sure. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Yes, sir. Yes, thank you for that question. So the question was about the impact to the businesses on Meadow Street. We are planning to implement wayfinding signage as part of the project to help people find their way when they do get off exit 22. Yes, sir. West Liberty. Sure. So, yeah, I do want to say that as part of the new mix study, we have been working very closely with the City of Waterbury, Naugatuck Valley, Council of Governments. It's not just about pushing cars through on the interstate, but also finding ways to increase the Yeah, appreciate your comments. Any other comments or questions? Sure. Yep. Yeah, so that's a good question. Yeah, so the question is, traffic coming down Route 8 South, you do have people that cut across all the lanes of traffic on I-84 eastbound and get off exit 21 and 22. As part of the future new mix plan, it's really going to take a big reimagining of the interchange to reconfigure those connections. We did look at things when we were looking at this project in particular, such as the Jersey barrier, but there's really just not enough room up on that 84 eastbound is so narrow. We couldn't find enough room to put that Jersey barrier in to get, to kind of separate that traffic from being able to jump across to exit 22. So we did look at it. Yes. So the question is, yeah, so exit 21's been closed on a temporary basis as part of the rehab project. So the question is, how has that impacted the city now, and then why are we proposing these improvements for the future? And part of the answer is that as traffic volumes are expected to grow, you're going to need more of these improvements in order to handle the diverted traffic. So you have people now that are kind of avoiding the area potentially because of the construction. There are a lot of different detours going on. In the future, as things restore to normal and traffic increases, then you'd need to start implementing these actions. So that's why we're doing it now. Any other thoughts? What was the last thing I mentioned? The future traffic volumes and the need to implement the... Sure. So just to reiterate for the folks, the question is, are autonomous vehicles and connected vehicles potentially part of the solution? Yeah, I think so, but for right now, we have to design to the standards that are out there. We just don't have the fleet of cars that are out on the road right now are not, by and large, connected or autonomous. So when that day comes, we'll plan for it accordingly. We are implementing smart technology in the signals so that they're connected to each other. They talk to each other. Cars can flow more efficiently. But as far as future changes with technology in cars, we'll react to those as they develop. Yes, sir. Sure, so the question is about eminent domain. Zach, do you want to take this or do you want me to? Okay, yeah, I'll take a shot at it. So essentially the process is eminent domain doesn't preclude the negotiation, if I understand it correctly. So basically we go to the court and we file the paperwork. We put the deposit in there for the amount that we feel the property is valued at, and the property owner has the ability to contest that in court. So. I
mean, obviously, before we would get to that level of condemnation, you know, be meeting with you, meeting with these property owners. They would be getting an offer based on the fair market value. And really that's the extent of the law that we can pay for. Like John mentioned, if the owner didn't like that value, they could get their own appraisal. They could come back with evidence showing that I should be paid this much, and we can negotiate that. If we really can't negotiate, we can bring it to court at the court level. You can kind of appeal that value. So there's always a way to be, you know, have your 2 cents heard and to fight back on the issue of the valuation if you don't feel like it's adequate. But in terms of the laws, yeah, that's a little bit just beyond the scope. Correct, yep. So it depends on the type of impact. Depending on severity of the impact, they may value a before value and an after value. So they will consider what the value will be in the after condition and any severance that's related to that. But with most of these minor impacts on this project, especially the construction easements that are temporary in nature, that's really just going to be valued as essentially a rental rate for the duration of the project. But larger impacts, like if there was an acquisition from a business per se, that's something that they might look at that. They'll do a full appraisal, they'll do a before and after condition, they'll add any severance that's needed, and we'll discuss with the property owner. We'll go over that appraisal, answer the questions, and try to answer their concerns.
There's, the only sliver take is on the corner of Meadow Street with Bank Street. Nope. Let me just get to the one on. Well, you can see it here. Let's see, that one, right on the corner of Meadow Street and Bank Street. In order to, yep, thank you, David. In order to fit the link configurations that we're proposing, it's a sliver take. It's not a full acquisition or anything like that. There are others that are from the state of, from the city of Waterbury, like for the right turn lane. Yep. The right turn lane from South Main Street to McMahon. That one is another, what's called a sliver take, but that's from the city of Waterbury. Affected in what? What's the concern of the effect of what's in terms of acquisition?
Sure. Yeah. As Zach mentioned, any property owners who are going to be affected will be notified by mail. But we can certainly come up with the count of the properties. It's mostly, I do want to reiterate that it's mostly the temporary easements to construct the sidewalk. So that easement extinguishes when construction is complete. We do have some, again, for some of the traffic signal equipment, on the corner of a street, just to put the cabinet and the mast arm and things like that. Oh, yeah, we can provide them after the meeting. Art, do you have something, or? On the exit 22 or on 84? In the future, the new mix study, we're looking at completely reconfiguring the interchange, replacing those bridges. At this time, no. Right now, so I just want to say that the rehab project that's out there, we're expecting to get another 20 years or so of life out of those bridges. So they're going to stay more or less as they are for about 20 years. Yeah. So the question is, we've had some projects out here that have had some impact in mitigating congestion. So that's part of, we mentioned these breakout projects from the new mix study. This is one of them. We have others that aren't looking at such major impacts as replacing a Route 84 bridge, but providing improvements. There's some in construction right now, extending lanes between exits, for example, on the I-84 westbound, between exit 22 where the mall comes on and exit 21 westbound. So smaller improvements like that that'll help ease the burden, over the next years and start to kind of lay the groundwork for the future, the project, future replacement. No, that would just be helping the cars that are, so you have tightly spaced interchanges, kind of like what we're talking about here, except, so you have the vehicles coming on the highway, and then you have vehicles entering the exiting the highway, all in a very short distance. So by extending that auxiliary lane, you just give people more room to merge back and forth. It has a bigger impact on easing congestion than you'd expect. So it's really, there are improvements on the local roads that we're looking at, but nothing's, so I should just say there are some minor improvements at intersections and things like that, but so that there are more projects to come that will help ease congestion. Excuse me. Any other questions or comments? Sure. Yeah, sure. So we've worked with the mayor's office. We've worked with engineering and public works. We've worked with planning. So we really had a very good working relationship, I think, with the city of Waterbury. Sure. So, yeah. So the question is, do we have an estimate of extra traffic going on the streets? So really, there isn't any additional traffic on the city streets per se. It's, the traffic from exit 21 is diverted to exit 22, but it's not taking cars from elsewhere and putting them on the streets. Yes, sir. Yeah, no, understood. I don't have the number at hand, but that's what this project is for. So we're anticipating the traffic that gets off exit 21 in the past is going to exit 22, and that's why we're proposing to improve these intersections to handle that additional traffic. Sure. Yeah, no, our traffic counts were taken before construction was done on the mix master, and we've been checking in throughout the project to make sure that the data that we got was still good. So we believe it's still accurate. Sure. So yeah, we'll just say we have a smart work zone, not to get too in the weeds. We have a smart work zone set up for the rehab project, so that's continuously counting the number of cars that go through. So we have very up-to-date statistics on the number of cars going through. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Any other, want to make sure everybody's voices are heard. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, well, we'll be here after the meeting, so happy to continue the conversation. I really appreciate everybody joining us this evening. So thank you again for your time.